So I'm here to introduce Paris Kern, who is a Feldenkrais trainer and a sounder sleep system trainer. She is the only sounder sleep system trainer in North America, and she's been teaching individuals and groups in this realm for over 30 years. She's coming to us live from Saxton's River, Vermont, and we're very happy to have her. So take it away, Paris.
Okay, and I'm going to ask your forgiveness. I'm still getting over some laryngitis, so I'm going to speak softly, and if you need to turn up your volume, I'm not going to be any louder than this at any point in time. So you're obviously here either because you're just curious about what I do or you have trouble sleeping. Those of you who have your cameras not on, it's much more lively and enjoyable for me if I can actually see who I'm teaching. Um, so unless there's a really big reason that you have your camera off, I would really love to see your faces. And for everybody who's there, when we get started with some of the movements, if you can move your chair back from your computer so I can see and observe how you're following, that'll be really helpful as well. And depending on how it is for you after we do the first lesson, we may or may not do another lesson lying down on the floor if that's feasible, or else we'll do 2 lessons in chairs. So,
Just quick pause. Paris, can everybody hear Paris okay? Getting some thumbs up, some sideways. Um, okay.
let me go into my sound settings for a second. And sound settings. Let's see if I can put my microphone up higher. Input. I will 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Is that better?
There you go.
Okay. I moved it up. I didn't want it to start to distort for anybody. Okay. So I'm just going to speak a little teeny bit and then we're going to go right into it because an experience is worth all the talking. So the sounder sleep system is what I like to say a child of the Feldenkrais method, which was really the first somatically based educational system in a practical sense that was good for everyone. There are a few other things like the Alexander technique, but they were targeted specifically for certain functions, whereas Feldenkrais method was really about the whole person, mental, physical, emotional, you name it, one whole human being. And Moshe Feldenkrais developed that method in the 40s, and it grew and grew. And then there was a fellow, Michael Krugman, who was a student of Moshe Feldenkrais's, a colleague of mine. And Feldenkrais had helped him with some of his sleep issues, but it didn't quite do it. And then he realized there was one particular movement in which he would do it in the class setting of Feldenkrais, and he would always fall asleep. So he did more and more research personally with himself and then trying it with other people until he discovered that there was actually something going on with certain types of movement that became what are called hypnogenic gestures. Hypno meaning sleep, genic meaning engendering gestures. So what we're doing are little teeny movements that set the stage in the nervous system so it can do the shutdown regimen it needs to do to allow us to fall asleep, wake up easily, and fall back asleep again. So that's a little teeny corner of the background of this. And the big aha for Michael through his personal research and then doing lots of deep dives into all sorts of sleep studies is that it is what's going on with your nervous system during the day that will affect your ability to sleep well. And so the big component of the sounder sleep system is stuff you do during the day. So when you get to bed and you want to go to sleep, or when you wake up from the first deep sleep into the lighter second half of the night, which is normal for everyone, you can put yourself back to sleep again easily. So the purpose is to relax yourself, calm your mind, calm your system so you can lull yourself to sleep. And the big secret, that's not such a secret, a big component is doing it very, very gently, easily, lightly, no gadgets, no gimmicks. You have everything you need contained in your own body and in your own brain. So you don't need any special tools. So we're going to start with one in a moment. So first, I'm just going to give you a moment to make sure that you're sitting in a chair comfortably, that you have a pillow to put in your lap, and yeah, and that you can have your feet flat on the floor. If you can sit at the front half of your chair, that's better. If that's totally not comfortable for you, be my guest, put a pillow behind you, lean back. The primary, most important thing is to be at ease. If your heels are not on the floor as you're sitting, get something, a blanket, a towel, a book, whatever, to put under your feet so your feet can rest flat on the floor. And if your pants are tight, go ahead and undo the top button. Nobody can see that. I'm just going to spotlight Eve for a second. Eve, can you move back a little bit so everybody can see how nice and flat your feet are on the floor? And turn it a little to the side. Turn your chair to the side. There we go. So you see Eve has got her thighs are parallel to the floor, her feet are flat on the floor, and she's got something to rest her hands on. Okay, that's great. Now this position I'm going to show you for your hands is used in two of the little movements that we have in our bag of tricks. And this is one of the more difficult aspects to teach. So I'm going to go over it a few times so you really have it ingrained in yourself. So bring your hands, I'm going to spotlight myself for this part. So bring your hands in front of you so you're looking at the backs of your hands. Take one hand, it doesn't matter if it's the right or the left, and get a hold of your thumb as if it's a bicycle handle. See, I'm just holding my thumb like that. I'm not gripping it, I'm just have my fingers gently wrapped around it. Okay? And now the hand that's the fist, this guy, I stick that index finger out and I wrap the other fingers around it. So let me show you that again. So you look at the back of your hands, you get a hold of one of the thumbs, the hand that's the fist, you stick out that index finger and wrap the other four fingers around it. So I've got my index finger in one hand and my thumb in the other, just like so. And rest your hands in your lap. And now, here's the pop quiz. Take your hands away from each other and see if you can do it on your own. Okay, and now separate your hands again. I got it. And just rest your hands, and you can, I really encourage you to not look at me at this point. In fact, close your eyes. If you're too tempted to look at the computer, turn your chair away from the computer. Looking at the computer screen would be trying to calm yourself at the same time you're drinking some double shot espresso drink. And just feel how you are. Just sitting there with your hands, your lower arms resting easily on the pillow on your lap. Just feel the state of yourself right now. You don't need to be able to put words to it. Sense your breathing. The state of your mind, if you feel calm, restless, excited, agitated. And now go ahead and do the movement with your hands again. I'm going to demonstrate one more time for the person who just came back in. So you look at the back of your hands. You grab one thumb like it's a bicycle handle. The fist that's holding the thumb, you stick out that index finger and wrap those other four fingers around it and rest it in your lap. And now just feel what it's like to hold your hands like that. It's a different sort of feeling. You've probably never done this before. So your mind is very curious, wondering how to hold the hands. Do you feel a tingling in the hands? A warmth or a pulse? And make sure you're not squeezing the hands. And if this position is causing any discomfort whatsoever, you modify it. Maybe you just hold the thumb, or you just hold the index finger, or you just lay the two hands one on top of the other in your lap. For this lesson, it's just important that your knuckles be facing the ceiling, not your palms. Can you feel your weight in the chair? Again, I encourage you to close your eyes. And breathe easily. Don't try and breathe in any particular way. Don't slow it down. Don't hurry it up. Don't try and breathe deeply or any particular way. Feel the way your feet contact the floor, your buttocks. Feel the chair, the weight of your arms and hands resting in the pillow. Come back to paying attention to the sensation in your hands, your thumb, and your finger as you just lightly have the thumb enclosed in one hand and the index finger enclosed in the other. Maybe you can even notice that the sensation in your hands is different if you're breathing in or if you're breathing out. You may notice with your breath that after each exhalation, there's a little teeny pause before you breathe back in again. And now continue to sit quietly, breathing easily and naturally. And each time you begin to inhale, gently bend your hands, your wrists a little bit towards yourself. So your fingers, the part of your hand that's resting on the pillow, lifts away from the pillow a little bit. Your wrists are bending backwards just the tiniest amount. And then as you exhale, you gradually relax your wrists and your hands completely rest on the pillow in your lap. You might even do the movement so small that the contact of the fingers and the pillow doesn't even really change. It just gets a little lighter. So your knuckles bend backwards towards your chest as you breathe in, and then as you exhale, they relax. And your hands and wrists are totally at rest. Your wrists and forearms stay supported by the pillow or your lap. Your knuckles just rise up a little bit as you inhale. And then as you exhale, you relax your wrists and allow your hands to come rest. It's the lightest, most minimal movement you can possibly do and still feel that you're doing the movement. And do this a few more times, synchronizing these minimal movements with the rhythm of your breath. Each time you inhale, gradually bend the wrists that tiny bit. And as you exhale, you gradually relax the wrists and let your knuckles come to rest on your lap. These movements are for you to feel and not for others to see. For our purposes, light, easy, gradual movements are the most effective. Big, forceful movements are stimulating. Small, slow movements have a powerful tranquilizing effect. Inhale, bend the wrists. Exhale, relax. And now pause for a moment. Keep your hands together. Rest and feel. Maybe something feels a little bit different. Maybe not yet. Don't worry, just continue to do the movements and you'll get all the effects. So now, this next time, as you inhale and bend your wrists backwards, synchronize the movements. So as long as it takes you to inhale, that's how long you allow yourself to slowly, gradually bend the wrists backwards. And then as long as it takes you to exhale, that's the time you give yourself to slowly relax the wrists and let them come to rest again. Breathe in easily and lightly. Bend the wrists backwards, coordinating the length of the bending with the length of the breath. Relax the wrists the same length as the exhalation. And just continue to bend the wrists backwards a little and then relax. Bend the wrist back a little as you inhale and then relax. Do 2, maybe 3 more movements and then rest and stop. And rest like this with your hands together and notice any pleasant sensations that arise, not just from your hands, but your wrists, your elbows, your arms, your shoulders. When you practice these gentle, self-paced movements, after a while, maybe immediately, maybe it takes a few more times of practicing, you get to a very pleasant state of tranquility. And then you just hang out there, and the waves of sleep will come when they need to come. And now slowly, molecule by molecule, separate your hands, let them rest in your lap. And notice how you are now. Notice the feeling in your hands, your arms, your chest. Or any place else that's of interest to you. Notice your breathing. Now, very, very slowly, in a moment, you'll open your eyes. Don't look at the computer yet. And just see if you can allow your eyes to open without looking at anything. And just notice if your peripheral vision has changed, if colors have changed. There's something you notice in the room that you didn't notice before. And that little mini move, as we call them, is one of the day tamers, another little word we have, called twist of the wrists. And before we do anything more, I'd love to hear from you, love to hear your questions, your reactions, your responses. So if you'd like to ask a question, just raise your hand and Eve or I will call on you and you can unmute. So I'll ask a question. Oh, there, Komita.
Thank you for hosting this. Is the focus on, and I'm probably asking an obvious question, but essentially is the focus on the wrists themselves, or really as you're doing the wrist movement, is seeing how it's impacting the rest of the body and the mind? Because I'm assuming this is when we're doing these exercises while laying down and it's in the middle of the night or the middle of the morning.
Okay, so that there's two questions there actually, or two answers to your one question. So We have dozens of different movements. They're divided into 3 basic categories. There's day tamers, which is what you just did, which is things you do in sitting during the day. There are calming movements, which can be done any old time. And then there are movements that we call lulling movements or night tamers that are meant to be done lying down in bed. There is a lot of cross-pollinating between those 3 main categories. This movement can be translated to doing it on your back in bed. Unlike Feldenkrais, it really is not about, oh, feel what happens in your lower back when you do the movement. It's not meant to be that global. It's just doing the movement, paying attention to doing as little as possible and coordinating it with the breath. That's what creates what we call the hypnogenic gesture. It's the movements themselves. And the wrist, we do a lot of stuff with the hands and the wrists in particularly, because there's so many bones in the wrist. And all those moving bones send stimuli to the brain, which then stimulates the brain to organize it, to inhibit the brain to help you fall asleep. It gets into a big, long explanation. I think I answered both parts of that. Yes, I did. Alan, you had a question.
Unmute myself. Not really a question. It just I'm a Feldenkrais practitioner, and I trained on Maui, and
Oh, Jerry.
and actually Michael was a friend of mine. And in the first session of the Feldenkrais training I was in, we were doing movements with the eyes, primitive eye movements.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really tired because I was working a lot. And I fell asleep within just a few minutes of just moving the eyes. And I just wondered, do you have in sounder sleep system, do you do eye movements?
Quite a
Yeah.
lot. Quite a lot. So we use the eyes, the fingers, the tongue, a lot, the lips, because these are highly innervated, highly wired parts of our body that have a lot of ways of communicating across both sides of the brain. We also have very, very tiny, tiny gross motor movements as well, where we move the hips and the shoulders. So, but everything's done teeny, teeny, tiny.
What about like the proprioceptors, like the lips, the
Yeah,
feet, the
well,
thumbs?
you just did the thumb. You just did the thumb. So when you're doing this, what's happening is you're stimulating the palm of the left hand, the thumb of the right hand. So you got this cross brain thing happening there. And then the opposite with the index finger in the other hand. So there's many, many things going on. Many, many things. And they're all deliberately sifted through. Michael created a bunch of lessons. I've built on that, and the only other trainer in the world who lives in Romania, but she's Swiss, has also developed new lessons.
Yeah, I should have gotten into this a little bit more when Michael was still alive. He used to come to my house on Thursday nights where we had a music gathering on Thursday nights. We played North Indian classical music, and he was very much like that. And actually, he sat in for me on I had an ATM class on Maui for a while, and he filled in for me when I was off island a couple of times. So I should have got into. I've kicked myself in the butt a whole bunch of times for not getting into it more with him. You know.
Oh, thank you, Alan. Okay. Any other questions? How did you respond to it? Did anybody feel different after they did just that 10 minutes or 15 minutes that we did? I see a couple people nodding. Would anybody like to share their experience? Brandon.
I was falling asleep sitting up.
That's great. When I have people teach in, when I tell my students, I say, if you teach people in chairs, make sure that there's arms on the chairs, or else they might fall out. Yeah. So what that tells me is you are in sleep debt, because when you're not in sleep debt and you get that to that very calm, tranquil state, you'll just be very calm and tranquil and you won't fall asleep. But if you're at all in sleep debt and you let yourself get there, off you go. Off you go. It's wonderful.
I thought it was incredibly calming.
Great. I see a lot of people nodding heads. How is it different? Maggie, hi. Hi, Maggie. I know you.
Hi. So I was typing at the computer all day today, and I had a lot of, you get, because it's not most ergonomic at home. And so that was just like, oh, all that tension gone from my arms, my hands, my fingers. It's just lovely. Thank you.
Oh, good. So that's a side benefit. Not
Yeah.
the side benefit. Why not? Why not have some side benefits? Anybody else like to ask another question or share an experience before we do another thing? Susan.
Well, I fell asleep
Good.
totally, but it was very relaxing.
Well, you'll get the recording, so you'll find out if you missed anything. So during the training programs or the workshops, which Michael coined the word a seminar, we have seminars instead of seminars. People fall asleep, and the whole purpose in a sound asleep system seminar is to learn to fall asleep and wake up, and fall asleep and wake up, and fall asleep and wake up. And Feldenkrais said that he spoke about sleep as a type of movement or organization of the brain. And all healthy animals, you just think about your pets, your dogs, your cats, your gerbils, whatever, they fall asleep and they wake up and then they go back to sleep, and they don't have an anxiety attack at 3 a.m. Another piece of very important information that a lot of people don't know is that there are several stages of sleep. I mean, you've heard there's, REM sleep, rapid eye movement. There's rapid tongue movement that they've just discovered that happens. But to say it succinctly as I can, we sleep in 4-hour chunks. That is the way the human animal has done it for millennia, until the Industrial Revolution. I will not get caught up in talking about that. Within those 4 hours, you have 90-minute to 120-minute cycles that you go through. And between each cycle, you come up out of a deep sleep and then back down, and up out of a deep sleep and back down. And people who are very light sleepers don't go through the whole cycle. They're like doing this. They go a little into a light sleep and up, and light sleep and up, and light sleep and up. Or you go down into a deep sleep, you wake up, and then you panic, cortisol goes way up, and you can't fall back asleep again. That's the typical insomniac. In a healthy system, you'll have the first 4 hours of 1, 2, or 3, or 4, or 5 of these cycles. And that's the first part of this total sleep that you need in the 24 hours. Then the second half of the night is a much lighter, quicker response of those. Both are necessary. The second lighter stage of sleep, where you kind of wake up, but you're not sure if, and all of a sudden it's like a couple hours have gone by and you go, well, I guess I must have slept, but I don't feel like I was sleeping. That type of sleep is when a lot of the memory, putting it on the hard drive work happens in the brain. So if nothing else tonight, if you can take from this that when you wake up at 3 in the morning or 1 or 4, whenever it is, that's natural. Don't panic. Because as soon as you panic, you might as well get up and have a cup of coffee. But if you don't panic, you can just kind of like, oh, I'm warm and cozy, or I'm a little hot. Maybe I'll throw off a blanket, or I'm cold, or yeah, maybe I'll go get up and pee. And I'll come back and I'll just enjoy being in bed and I'll fall asleep. And once you learn how to do these sound asleep system things, you'll have a library that you can draw upon to do in bed at night to help get you back into that state. That's kind of a snippet of how this all works. It's more complicated than that. Any questions about what I just said? So here's a question that I do need you to answer, especially all those who I cannot see. I would like to do something with you lying down. Is there anybody for whom that's like absolutely not possible? Maggie says she can't lie down. How many of you cannot lie down? Let's 1, 2, I'm going to remove my hand. 1, 2, 3. So most of you can. So I will teach a lesson that those of you who cannot lie down, do you have a chair you can lean back on? Okay. All right. So I'm going to give you a moment to, I'm looking at the time. Do I really want to do that or that? I was going to do something on the side, but that's not going to work for the sitting people. Okay, I know what I'm going to do. So those of you who are going to lie down, go ahead and lie down on the floor, on your back. Make sure you're warm enough that you have a pillow for under your head, a pillow behind your knees, if you want to have a pillow behind your knees. This is not Feldenkrais, so you don't need to be lying flat, flat, flat. You can lie on the couch, on a bed. Those of you who need to sit, make sure you can sit and really rest your head on the back of a chair. Oh, Brandon, doesn't look like your chair is high enough for that. Maggie's like, can't do it. Well, you're a Feldy. You can imagine as you can do what you can do, but you can lean back. Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, and if you, just as you're lying there on your back, just see if you want to put a pillow behind your knees so you can be really comfy. So I'm going to do the first part of the lesson that we teach completely, which takes about 40 minutes, which we don't have, which is the key to the two aspects of the sound or sleep system. And the cornerstone is the breath. And unlike other things, it's not about learning how to breathe in a specific way. You're already breathing. If you weren't, you wouldn't be here. If you didn't know how to breathe without thinking about it, you would die every time you went to sleep, right? So obviously your body knows how to breathe without you doing anything. That's it. So find yourself on the floor or lean back comfortably in your chair. And just feel yourself breathing. Now, it may be difficult in the beginning to learn how to feel your breathing without changing it, but just do the best job you can. It's all about learning, and learning is a process. Just notice the length of your breath, what parts of yourself you feel moving. Close your eyes. The eyes bring in so much information, and then your brain has to process all that information. Remember, I used the word hypnogenic gesture. Well, the first hypnogenic gesture that we all know is closing the eyes. And the other one is lying down, removing the need to stand in gravity. And now, please bend your elbows and put your hands on your lower belly. And if you can, try to organize your hands in such a way that your hands are open and soft, and that the middle fingers or the index fingers and the thumbs, the tips can touch. So the fingers are below the belly button. Maybe the thumbs are at the belly button or above. But see if you can find a way to organize yourself so the elbows can still be resting on the floor, and either the thumb and the index finger, or the thumb and the middle finger, or just the middle finger, whatever you can do so 2 fingertips are touching each other. And if that's not possible, just imagine that they're touching each other and you'll get all the benefits. And just continue to breathe easily and feel how your belly swells as you inhale and sinks as you exhale. You don't need to do anything in particular. This is just what happens. Don't try and breathe deeply or in any special way. Just notice the rising, swelling of the belly, and then the sinking. And again, on the next exhalation, organize your hands so a fingertip is touching its counterpart on the other hand. It could be 1 fingertip, it could be 2, it could be the thumb and another finger. And you'll notice as you inhale, the contact between the tips of the fingers changes. So the hands are completely resting on the belly, Carol Ann. That's it. The fingers are gently spread. Feel how when you breathe in and your belly swells and rises, the fingertip contact changes. Maybe it gets a little lighter. Maybe they're even pushed apart from each other. You don't have to lift a finger. You don't have to do anything. You breathe in, the fingers move apart. You breathe out, they come back together. You needn't do anything else. You just breathe in and then breathe out. You may notice that your breathing is not regular. That is totally normal. Like all biological functions, some things will be a little faster at times, a little slower at times, a little deeper, a little shallower. This irregularity is normal, enjoyable. You needn't try to change anything. The way you're breathing right now is perfectly fine. Guided natural breathing, which is what you're doing right now, is the cornerstone for the sound or sleep system. Breathing is essential for relaxation and sound or sleep. And this lesson is called Less is More, to make it easy to remember that natural, easy breathing should be light, easy, soft, and slow. Light means you can breathe without making any effort. You just allow the air to come in. Easy means you breathe without any strain. Should be the easiest thing in the world. Soft means that breathing can be gentle and continuous. Everything happens gradually. No need to huff or puff. And slow means you just don't hurry. You take all the time you need for each breath. To inhale, you don't have to do anything. You just allow the breath to arrive. Your body automatically supplies itself with just the right amount of air. To exhale, you just allow the breath to flow out. Make no effort to breathe deeply or in any special way. Intentional deep breathing creates strain and effort. Deep breathing produces more stress than it relieves. Deep breathing is what we need to do when we need a lot of oxygen for action or strength. Light, easy breathing is effortless. And continue breathing like this for a few minutes and observe. You inhale, your fingers move apart. You exhale, they come back together. Whenever you feel your mind wandering, you just come back to this very specific sensation of the fingers moving together and then apart when you breathe in, and together when you breathe out. Now slowly allow your hands to move to wherever you wish. Slowly open your eyes. Or if you want to continue and just continue to sleep like this till tomorrow morning, be my guest. But we have 10 more minutes, and I'd like to give you an opportunity to ask any other questions you might have about the sound or sleep system, how you can find a practitioner where you live, the training program that's starting in a couple weeks. And if you have a question you're shy about speaking, you can type your question into the chat. So how was that for you? So that's 1/3 of a much longer lesson. Yeah, Alan took the time to stand up. Maybe you stand up and feel if your posture's changed. You don't know. All sorts of things can improve. Maybe the way your arms hang from your shoulders is different. Anybody fall asleep again?
I did.
Who's that who said I did?
Ricky, I fell asleep again. Thank you. I'm going to have to watch the recording.
So I'm the kind of teacher that doesn't lecture well unless I'm asked questions. My brain needs to be turned on by a question. Belarus.
Yes, sorry, I didn't know how to raise my hand. Like when we were connecting fingers, is it like anyway? Because like initially when I was having it like this, those fingers were touching. Is that good enough, or I need to move
Okay. I
them?
mean, primarily the hands are like this,
Oh, okay.
like that.
Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
But
Okay.
if your build dictates that when you put your hands on your lower belly, that this is what happens,
Uh-huh.
then that's what's going to happen. As you breathe in, they'll get pushed apart and together. But
Okay.
if you just have the tips, it's really, really lovely.
Okay.
But
Okay.
there's not a wrong way to do any of this. If it works for you.
Okay.
Allison,
Hi, Paris. Thank you so
for
much.
my practitioners.
Yes. Unless someone else has a question, I'll
Yeah.
ask them. How did you get into the sounder sleep system, Paris?
I couldn't sleep. I mean, I always blamed my mother. I mean, that's what we do. We blame mothers because she always put me to sleep, even in the summer before it was dark. And it was like, I never fell asleep easily. So I always blame my mother. But I'm a pretty high energy, you know, busy brain person. And I went to to Michael when I was in the first class that he did actually, when he still lived in New York. And he came down to Baltimore to do a workshop. And I've never been a good napper. I was one of those people, I took a nap and I would wake up and I just feel horrible for the rest of the day. It's like, why bother? And here I am going to this 3-day workshop and I was falling asleep the first day. And I thought, oh gosh, I'm never going to sleep tonight. Oh no. Well, I fell asleep on and off for that first day. And that first night I went home, I went to bed early. I slept like a rock because the stress hormones that were always coursing through me had been lowered so much that my brain went, thank you. I can finally go to sleep. There aren't any tigers coming at me. And after those 3 days, it was just like, this is it. This is it, baby. Because I was not going to take medication. It wasn't that severe. I was in my 20s, so I could, I could withstand being a poor sleeper. But that's how I got into it because I needed it. I did not ask her to ask that question, by the way. She's not a plant. Alan?
Yeah, are you going to do a Zoom training or virtual training?
This is my first live training since 2020, and I am going to do the live training, the in-person. I mean, they're always live, but it's going to be in person. We are going to have for the first workshop, and Eve has the numbers. I'm allowing some people to Zoom for the first workshop, but to do the teacher training, I need you to come to Boston for the second 2 segments. So you can do the segments on Zoom if you don't want to be a teacher, but if you want to do the teacher training, because there's a whole hands-on aspect of it that I haven't been able to teach because you can't do that part on Zoom. But if you just want a 3-day experience for yourself, there are a few places left because I'm limiting the Zoom thing because I'm really trying to get people to come. But yeah, you're in Portland, Oregon. I get it.
So I'll just throw in the chat the link with all of the details, all of the information about the workshop um, and the full training. So kind of as Paris said, the whole training is in 3 parts, and you can take the first module as a separate standalone workshop for yourself, just to learn this material for yourself. I took a day and a half last April, and I've been using it ever since. And just that day and a half, I learned a ton. So yeah, so we have space available for that first module, and then also for the continuing for the whole training. So the January weekend is the first module. Then we have a module in April, and then one in July, and those are all happening here in Boston, in a suburb of Boston called Arlington. And yeah, does anybody have any logistic questions? Yeah.
Illarud.
So the online training, do we need to do it in real time, or there will be a recording as well?
Yes. We do have some spots available if you want to do it online. We're prioritizing people who want to do the whole training, but they just want to do that. They can't be here, because they're far away for the upcoming segment. Email me if you're interested in doing the online training. You can just respond to the email that you got from me today. Yeah. So yeah.
Where do you live?
Sorry?
Where do you live?
In Connecticut.
Oh, you're close. Okay. A lot better than Ukraine or China, which is where I've done other trainings.
Right.
Those have to be online.
So my question was actually about, like, if time doesn't work for me exactly, like, is there going to be a recording or not?
There will be a recording. Yeah. So we can talk about that too. Yeah.
The way I teach is very, very personal. I am teaching to each individual, which is why the in-person training is limited to 20 people. I need to have a relationship with each person, see how they're progressing, and being able to hone my instructions to everybody as an individual. And if it's not live, that doesn't happen for you. But
I get it.
Nothing's written in stone. Nothing's written in stone.
Okay, any last questions?
Does everybody know how to get in touch with Eve?
Great.
And Allison, you know what? It just gave me the idea, because you did the online training and didn't get the hands-on stuff, that maybe the last segment we open up a day or two for people who want to come that are already practitioners that just did online and didn't get the hands-on. That's an option. Yeah. Okay.
There's
once, going twice. Last questions?
Okay. Thanks so much, Paris. And thanks. It's good to see so many of you. Sleep well tonight. And yeah, let us know if how you slept tomorrow, if there's any different.
If you have any questions going forward, just write to us.
All right.
Thank you very much for coming.